plan on converting my front turn signal bulbs to LEDs. However, not all LEDs are created equal. Not all LEDs are going to fit. And a common issue that people have when they go to places like super bright LEDs or whatever, they buy the brightest possible bulb. They get it home, they go to swap it out, and oh no, it won't fit. Even though it's the same number, it just does not fit, okay? And unfortunately, there are so many generic numbers out there as far as bulbs are concerned, and there's subtle differences between each one of those. It could be something as simple as a manufacturer actually just using their own personal preference or custom design, or something that's just such a slight variant of the common or the norm, okay? So one problem you can actually run into is when you get your bulb and it's supposed to fit your car, and you get it in, you realize, oh geez, it's just too long to fit in the actual lens, or it doesn't have a wide angle, so it only shows up, you know, straight ahead, and it doesn't reflect the light around the lens, or whatever. There's so many different variations of the same bulb that you have to make sure that you understand exactly what you're going to be getting. So it's real important that you actually find the bulb that you think you're going to want, and then measure it to make sure it's actually going to fit. Now, I'm not going to get into specifics as far as the CAN bus requirement, load resistors, and things like that until later in the video. But right here, I have the bulb that I've picked out, okay? And this bulb is actually from Super Bright LEDs. It's a 500 lumen 26 LED arrangement. It's 360 degrees. But before I go ahead and purchase these $20 a piece bulbs, I need to make sure that they're actually going to fit in my housing. Now, it's less important that the actual base, the actual plug, is going to fit, because those are all the same. You know, they're not going to vary because they use the same style connector. What's important is that the total length of the bulb from the upper base, which would be just above the actual connector, to the tip of the bulb is not too long. Also, another important thing is that the bulb isn't too wide. If this portion right here is too wide to even fit in the hole, well, then there's no point. If this part of the bulb is too wide to fit in the hole, then it's not going anywhere. So you have to worry about, is the bulb going to be too tall? Is it going to bump up against the lens? Is it going to be too wide where you won't even be able to get it into the hole? So that's something that you need to actually consider. So what I'm going to do is, I've got the actual dimensions of this bulb. I've got my trusty tape measure here, and I've already taken out the bulb, and I'm going to basically just measure the inside of the lens. So I've gone ahead and removed my tail lamp assembly, or moved it out of the way, and as you can see down here, this is the actual socket that goes to the turn signal bulb. There's the turn signal lens right there. What's important is, will this bulb actually fit in this hole right here? So, first of all, we're going to measure the diameter of that opening. And as you can see on here, the total diameter of this bulb is 1.04 inches. So let's go ahead and see if the diameter of this bulb is less than 1.04 inches. So just a tad over an inch. So, as you can see there, we have room to spare. It's about 1 1/4 approximately. Now, to be on the safe side, I'm actually going to measure the other end, the other opening right there. Still got about a 1 1/4. So diameter wise, it's going to fit. There's going to be no problem with that. Now I need to measure the actual length of the bulb, which is going to be 1.84 inches. Remember, you're not measuring the actual base connector of the bulb, because that actually doesn't go into, that actually sits inside that connector right there. So 1.84 inches, so let's just say 2 inches. So I got her set at 2 inches, and I'm just going to slide it in there, and you can see I've got about it looks like about 2 3/4 approximately. So more than enough room in there for me to fit this bulb. So that's perfect. So I can actually go up to 2 3/4 inches without this bulb actually, you know, banging up against the lens of the actual front of the lens. So Alright, looks like we got a winner here. So I'll go ahead and get that on order, and then obviously in the next part, which will be 3-4 days later, I'll be installing it. Okay guys, so what I have here is I have the LED lamp up against the standard incandescent amber bulb. Now this, for my particular car, this is a 5702 KA, and it's common with later model General Motors vehicles. Now, if you look close here, I don't know how well it's going to focus, but you can see that there's actually two filaments. There's two filaments. Now, I couldn't tell you exactly which one is which. Now, I can tell you that one of these is your running lamps. So when you're driving down the road, they run at a certain output. And then when the other one kicks on, you've got a turn signal. And basically, you've got two connections right here. You've got a positive and a negative, a positive and a negative. So when you're driving down the road, only two of these are actually active, okay? And then when you put on your turn signal, to make the turn signal really bright so that you can actually see that turn signal, it sends voltage to the other contacts, which then lights up the other set of contacts, okay? So essentially, you've got 4 connections here, okay? Now, in my vehicle, I actually have a sort of disadvantage. I have a newer model vehicle, and the turn signal, as well as the daytime running lights, and basically pretty much every lamp that's on that car is controlled by the body control module. So I have a CAN bus setup. My system is routed in a CAN bus system, okay, which basically stands for Control Area Network, and it's just a newer style of being able to interface with the car. The computer can interface with different modules throughout the car that can communicate 2 ways back and forth, and it's a pretty sophisticated system. So this bulb right here, this 3157, or this LED, I keep saying bulb because it's out of habit, it's just something that you say. This 3157 that's right here, it's actually a CAN bus 3157, okay? Now, why is it a CAN bus, and why do I need CAN bus? It's CAN bus style bulb. Well, this CAN bus style doesn't necessarily mean the appearance of the bulb or the slot of the bulb, because these are actually identical. All it means is that the computer actually continuously monitors these bulbs, your turn signals, okay? And when it senses that there's a turn signal out, when it senses that the connection is broke, then it'll actually engage hyperflash. Now, hyperflash is there to kind of alert you that you have a turn signal bulb out, which I think is good. On the other hand, let's say that you cannot get to the store right then, or maybe you're short on money or whatever, and you go to turn, and a cop comes up behind you, and they see that hyperflash, because it doesn't just hyperflash inside to indicate it. It actually hyperflashes whichever bulb is not burned out. So in my case, my rear tail lamps, which are LEDs, they will hyperflash. So I'm at a light, and I got my turn signal on like I normally do, and it's flashing really fast. Cop pulls up behind me. He's going to know that I'm going to have a bulb out, which gives him, at least in this state, it gives him probable cause to pull me over. Now, he may not give me a ticket. He may say, hey, you know, you got a turn signal bulb out, but it's his opportunity to actually dig a little bit deeper. Let's say that I'm cruising around, you know, at around 2 a.m. It'll give him an excuse to pull me over to check to make sure that I'm not drinking, which, okay, I'm fine with that. But what I'm saying is that it gives them a reason to pull you over, and if they have nothing else better to do, that's what they're going to do. And there are some cops out there who actually will give you a ticket if they notice that, a fix-it ticket, and who knows, you might get in trouble for some other stuff. So basically, I want to avoid getting pulled over, and I don't like the idea that instead of it just alerting you inside on your dash, where, you know, the turn signal indicator is, it just flashes really fast. Instead of it just doing that, it actually then makes it so that every other bulb on that side is going to flash hyper. So I think it's a little overstretching, but quite possibly the technology just may not be there to allow them to isolate the dash from the actual entire system. And then again, maybe more modern cars or other makes actually allow you to do that. But anyway, on my car it's not that way. So anyway, so this is a CAN bus LED, and the exact model here is 3157 W26 CBT. Okay, so this is the bulb that's going to fit my vehicle. Now you already saw that I took my measurements to make sure this bulb was actually going to fit, and it is. Another thing that I'm going to need, unfortunately, is I'm going to need one of these. This is an inline load resistor, and essentially I mentioned that I have a CAN bus bulb here, or a CAN bus LED stack here. Okay, this is most likely not going to be enough to fake the computer into thinking that there's an actual turn signal there, or a turn signal bulb. When it checks, when it actually does its check, it's going to see, okay, yeah, there's a bulb here. Now I believe, and I could be wrong here, okay, so don't quote me, but I believe there's actually a chip on the inside here that's actually telling or faking the computer into believing that even before the turn signal is on, it actually is just faking the computer into sensing that there's actually a bulb here. And that's all it does. But there's also a secondary check. This secondary check actually happens on a lot of vehicles, even way before mine, before CAN bus. When you turn your turn signal on, it sends voltage to the actual turn signal contacts, okay? Now, the computer continuously senses that, okay? And if it comes out to be within a certain parameter, then it senses, okay, there's a bulb there. But LEDs actually use a lot less power than an incandescent bulb, okay? This incandescent bulb has an enormous amount of resistance, so it generates an enormous amount of heat, okay? And so the computer actually senses that. There's all sorts of different systems out there that do it, but most likely the computer is going to sense that, and it's going to sense that there's very low power going through this bulb, or that's responding through this bulb, all of about maybe 10, 15 watts or something like that, and it's going to believe that there's either a malfunction in the bulb itself or that the turn signal bulb is out. Now, if it senses that nothing is going through there, then it's automatically going to assume that the bulb is out. Obviously, there's going to be something, but it's going to be very, very low, because these consume a very little bit of amount of energy compared to an incandescent bulb, okay? So, I'm going to need a load resistor. This load resistor is rated to 50 watts, okay? And what it's going to do is essentially it's going to run in line with the positive side of the LED, okay? So before the electricity hits this bulb, it's going to be loaded down, okay? It's going to be loaded down to the point where it creates an enormous amount of resistance, and then that will actually trick the computer into thinking that there's an incandescent bulb here, okay? Right here. Now, you may not need one of these. If you already have LED turn signals, then you're set. Sometimes your car may actually not require these. In fact, when I was looking at this particular bulb, this particular LED stack, there were several people who said, oh yeah, plug and play, worked just fine, never had hyperflash, nothing. And then there were other people who said, well, I had hyperflash right away, so I had to get a load resistor in order to fix that. Your situation may be different, okay? Now, I can't promise you either way based on your car make or model, but I know that on my vehicle, I'm actually going to require one of these. And I've actually seen and done research, and it indicates that people who've actually replaced their bulbs with LEDs have hyperflash afterwards. So this is going to be required. I'll get into the installation of this later, but this essentially just creates a kind of a fake signal to the computer telling it that, yes, there's a bulb here. Now, this is an incandescent bulb, right? I've got a 9-volt LED, or excuse me, I have a 9-volt battery here, okay? It's nowhere near the 12 to 14 volts that's going to be going through either this bulb or this. But I can show you for an example of just how much brighter these LEDs are than this incandescent. Now, when this incandescent is lit up at 12 to 14 volts, of course it's going to be brighter. However, this is going to demonstrate that with the same 9 volts, you're getting way less light than you are out of the LEDs, okay? So basically what I'm going to do here is, if I get this lined up properly, okay, so you can probably see, there's the amount of output from a 9-volt battery, okay? This is what we're getting. Okay, this is a 9-volt battery. It's not much. You can see how much resistance is in there, okay? Now, these are actually polarity sensitive, okay? So while the 9-volt battery will work in either way, you know, it doesn't matter the polarity, these actually have polarity on them. Now, these particular LEDs are not marked, so when I go to install them, I may have to flip them to make sure that they are in fact the correct polarity. But I can go ahead and demonstrate for you. You can see there just how bright these bulbs are. This is a 9-volt battery, okay? This is nothing more than a 9-volt battery, and you can see just how much brighter these things are. Look at that. I mean, that is crazy. Look at how bright that is, and this is off of 9 volts. And this bulb here will handle up to a 15-volt charge before it'll actually start to break down. So look at that. Just look at how bright that is. Can you imagine going down the road with something like this? I mean, this is just 9 volts. 9 volts is already brighter than that incandescent bulb, okay? So this just merely demonstrates that, you know, these bulbs are just so much brighter with the same amount of electricity. These LED stacks, okay? So that's that's mainly the reason why I got them. They are much brighter. I chose not to go with amber, okay? I wanted to go with something that was going to be white. Now there are certain laws pertaining to what colors you can have. This company and all the other companies that sell these type of LED bulb or stacks or whatever you want to call them, they actually have different colors. I chose white. I want all the light that's coming out the front of my vehicle to be white. Why do I want that? Well, what I see going down the road a lot is I see people who have blue or even sometimes purple, all sorts of different colors. Now, that's fine. I'm not knocking anybody for doing that. But any other color other than white, even amber, any other color other than white, when you are traveling down the road, is going to be less than white. And a lot of the light that's coming out is not going to be directly opposite of the dark, which is what the road is going to actually be. You know, you're out in the middle of the country, there's no light out there, then when you're lighting up the road with blue, you're actually not lighting it up as much. Yeah, it looks cool, but the output isn't as much because of the wavelengths. And it's you can look on Google to get information on this to actually figure this out, but white light is actually the best light going down the road. While blue looks cool and yellow looks really cool and violet looks really cool, it's not as effective as white light, okay? So I have chosen to go with a white light simply because I want the best possible visual, not only to help me see going down the road, but also for other people to see my turn signal. And these days, many manufacturers are actually moving away from amber style bulbs for not only their turn signals, but their daytime running lamps and so on. And they're switching to a white LED style bulb. So anyway, so I've got all this right here. I've got it ready to install. I've got one resistor per LED per turn signal, and I'll get these installed in line. There comes with instructions. I got these from Super Bright LEDs. They've always been a good company. I don't buy all my LEDs from there because some of the interior bulbs that they have, such as map lights and things like that, they're a little bit more expensive than something you can find on Amazon. If you haven't seen my video on my replacing my my shifter lever bulb, I actually did not get that from Super Bright. I got that off of Amazon, and it works just as good as the ones that were on Super Bright, but it was about $4 cheaper. So anyway, we are all set here. I'm going to go ahead and start the install. I'll show you just how easy it is. It doesn't take much time at all. The hardest part is getting these resistors installed in line. So I will go ahead and get this thing going. Okay guys, never mind the squeaky sound. I just started my car up. But you can see an obvious difference between the left and the right. Now, it might not be on camera all that well, but I can see just how much brighter the LEDs are compared to the amber bulbs. How bright that is. It's an amazing, you can see the reflection in the, you can see the bulb reflecting. It's kind of cool. And there's the amber bulb. And if you look at it from the side here, you can see much more light in front of the vehicle in this area here. And I don't have my fog lamps on. I just have the running lamps. And if you look over here, you can see no light whatsoever. I mean, it's barely showing up. Even I can barely see it. So, see, this side's lit up. And we don't see anything on this side at all. So, clear indication that these LEDs are much brighter. See, you can't see anything at all. It's not just because of the amber, it's just because these are way brighter. Trust me when I say they're way brighter. Okay, so this is the actual turn signal. I actually have my hazards on, but this is what it's going to look like when you've got an actual turn signal on. And you can clearly see in front of you just how much more light is being projected from the LEDs versus the incandescents. You can also see there's a delay there on the incandescent side. That's because it takes longer for the incandescent bulb to heat up to produce the light that it needs to. The LED is instant. So you can see just how much brighter these are. This is a good perspective here, seeing just how much brighter these are. So when you're going on the road, you've got your turn signal on, people are going to see the white much more than they would the actual amber. So, pretty cool. There's no doubt about it. I'm really excited about this. However, I still have hyper flash. So, that's something that I'm going to have to fix with the resistors. Okay, so here's an inside perspective. Now, this camera is not doing a real good job picking this light up, and I know I'm not in front of a wall, so I can't really say for sure, but I can definitely tell from my perspective that the LED bulb is projecting light much further out on the pavement than the incandescent. Granted, there's a car there, but I can clearly see when that LED comes on how much brighter it is compared to the incandescent. Now, I know I keep going over this over and over again, but I just want you to be assured that I'm really seeing much more light, that this isn't some kind of a magic trick or something. I really am seeing more light. I mean, look at how bright it's reflecting off of that camper. That is amazing. That camper is probably a good, I don't know, 45, 50 feet away, yet it's lighting it up really well. And so this is impressive. This is something people are going to see all the way down the road. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get the other one installed here, and then I'll get some more footage. I also have to get the resistors in, so yeah. So one more thing before I move on, to alert you. Some people, I've actually read this, some people say that, oh, they installed the bulbs, there was no hyper flash, then they went to go drive down the road and suddenly they get hyper flash. Or during the day there wasn't any hyper flash, but at night there's hyper flash. What's up with that? Well, it has to do with the body control module and how it's monitoring the system voltage. It's actually monitoring the voltage all the way across the system. And when it senses that there's a drop or there's a loss or a drop in output or whatever, then it automatically assumes that you've got a turn signal bulb out, right? So here I've got all my lights on. I've got my fog lights on, I've got my headlights on, everything's on, right? Everything that I can turn on is on. So there's the hyper flash, right? I got my turn signal on. This side, no hyper flash because it's got the incandescent bulb, the regular bulb. But let's go ahead and turn our fogs off. Fogs are off. And headlamps. Everything's off now, right? So, right turn signal as normal. Left turn signal. You see that? the hyper flash goes away. Now, why is that? Well, as I said before, there's much less of a draw on the entire system, so the computer is actually seeing that bulb being there as being there because there's a less of a draw, okay? Less of a draw across the entire system. Well, so let's go ahead and turn on some bulbs, and look at that, I got hyper flash. Now I just have my fogs on, but it's a complete system, okay? It's not like each individual, you know, bulb is unique or anything else like that. The body control module is actually controlling all of the lights, okay? Now there are some actual fuses for, let's say, the headlamps and so on, but when it comes to the entire system, it senses, you know, the power across the whole system. And when it senses a drop, then it goes and checks and sees, oh, geez, you know, you got a turn signal out. That's where it's coming from. So I just wanted to make sure that if you don't think you need a load resistor and you went ahead and installed these, and let's say it's during the daytime when you don't have any lights on, and you go to use your turn signals and you say, oh, see, they're working just fine, I guess I don't need a load resistor. Then you start to go drive at night and you find, well, what the hell, now all of a sudden I need a load resistor? That's why. This is if your computer controls your turn signals, your daytime running lamps, etc., etc. If you don't have a computer controlled lighting system, then you're probably not going to have to worry about this. But I don't have any solenoids, fuses, switches, nothing that I can physically alter on my car that has anything to do with the turn signals. It is controlled exclusively by the body control module, okay? So I don't have the option of using a flasher, just replacing any fuse or whatever with a flasher. I don't have that opportunity. So I have to do it the hard way. I actually have to use a load resistor. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a load resistor on each end, on each bulb, the positive, and that should trick the computer into thinking that I do have a bulb there, okay? So hopefully that information helps you out. Okay, so down here, below here, you can see the bulb, the socket. So I'm just going to turn counterclockwise, and it releases the bulb. This is the old bulb coming out, okay? So here's the old bulb. It just pulls right out of the socket really easy. In fact, I can probably do this one-handed, just like that, okay? Here's the old bulb, okay? New bulb goes in exactly the same way, except for you might have a polarity issue. LED bulbs are specific to their polarity, okay? And you've got three wires coming out of here. One of them is positive. Actually, two of them are positive. The blue wire here is positive. The brown wire in the middle is positive, and the black wire is negative. So they have to be, the polarity has to be matching up. Whereas in the incandescent bulb, that doesn't matter. So I'm going to go ahead and slot in the LED. So when installing these, make sure you only grab the base of the bulb. Don't touch anything that is up in the LED area. You don't want to get oil on these LEDs, just like you would an incandescent bulb. Just there's so much room here, you can see here, that you can easily bring it in and even use your fingernails to get it all the way. So now I got the bulb installed, but now I need to verify that I have the polarity matched up. So I'm going to do that right now by turning on my date. Okay, so the polarity was correct on my first attempt. Again, if you didn't get it right, just take the bulb out, flip it around, and then get it right back in, okay? But you can see that it's lit. I'm going to go ahead and hit the hazard so you can see how bright it is outside and make sure that works. Okay, it's hard to look directly at this bulb, but you can see that the hazards are working. This is essentially what the turn signal is going to look like when it's done during the day. So, it looks pretty good, actually. It's phenomenally bright, much, much brighter. So I can go ahead and reinstall these into the socket when I get the load resistors installed, which I'm going to go ahead and do that part next. I'll show you how to get that done real quick. Okay, I've got my headlamp assembly out, and if you need information on how to remove your headlamp assembly, I'll leave a link in the description. But here's the actual plug for the turn signal, and there is a blue, a brown, and a black wire that come out of it. Your black wire is the ground, the brown wire is your running lights, and then the blue wire is the flashers, the actual turn signals, okay? So essentially what we need to do is we need to run the resistor across the black, or excuse me, across the blue. And by doing so, we are actually dropping or increasing the resistance. And by doing so, we're increasing the resistance, so it tricks the computer into thinking that there's actually a bulb there. It's pretty simple to do. You just need to make sure that you're really careful. We're going to be using these, sometimes referred to as vampire clips. They came with the bulbs, or excuse me, they came with the resistors from Super Bright, and you can see it already has some dielectric compound inside there. If you don't know how to use these, then find somebody who does. I won't be able to get this on camera while I'm doing this. I can show you what I'm doing, but I won't be able to get the actual process because it's going to require 2 hands. Essentially, I'm just going to run that vampire clip in the blue wire that's right there. Okay, that blue wire there is what I'm going to be biting into. Then I'm going to run that to ground from there, which this looks like a suitable ground because I don't like to use these vampire clips. It came with 2 so that I can cut in both the black and the blue, but I'm just going to use 1. I don't really feel comfortable with the clips to begin with, so if this goes as it should, then I should actually have the computer tricked. So we'll see, but I'm going to go ahead and get the vampire clip in. It's a good idea to clean this wire first. I'm going to be taking down some of this electrical tape so that I can spread these wires a little bit more. I don't want the clip to be way up here, so let's go ahead and get started on that, and I'll show you the next. Okay, so I've taken down some of the electrical tape, I've cleaned the wires off with a rag, and you can see I've spread them so that I have easy access to the blue wire with the white stripe. And that's where I'm going to bite into to get the resistor out. Okay, so I've completed the vampire, so to speak. It is solid. I did a tug test. It's on there. So I've essentially tapped into the blue line, which is the turn signal. Here's one that I haven't used, which I'm not going to use, and you can see there's actually 3 spots. There's 1 on one side and there's 2 on the other. The side that is on the left here is actually where you slide your wire, what you're tapping into. And then on the right is a stop wire, which is essentially the wire that you're adding to it. Okay, and then you basically slide the wire in, you lock it into place like that. Then you slide the wire that you're adding to it into this end, and then you snap this shut, and you use some wide pliers to, basically punch it down, squeeze it until it bites into both wires. You obviously you want to come in from this side, and I actually used some really wide pliers, as you can see here, and you just come into the side because you don't want any pressure points on the top or the bottom, because then you're just going to break it. So you come in from this side, make sure you're centered, and you just bite down with some grip. Not a lot. You don't have to put too much in there because the clip on the inside is actually pretty sharp, and it'll go through that wire just fine. So that's essentially what I've completed down here. I know it's hard to see. There's not much room for me to pull this wire up for you to see it, but it's tapped in. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the resistor ground to this point right here. This is also a ground for the headlights, for all the lamps actually. This is going to be perfect. I'm just going to loosen this up, slide it up underneath there, and then tighten it down. Okay, really simple. But you want to make sure you find a ground. You don't necessarily have to tap into the black wire that's there. You can tap into whatever you want. Okay, so now I need to turn my attention to mounting, or finding a good place to mount this. This thing will get as hot as iron, a hot iron, okay? And it's going to get really hot, so I need to make sure that it's away from wires, plastic, anything else like that. My idea is to actually attach it to this frame bolt right here. This is where the front bumper attaches to the frame. So if I loosen that up and then slide that end right there, that's hard to see, but if I slide this point right here in between and then just tighten it down, it should hold it just fine. I'm not anticipating any problems at all, but I just don't want it hanging here, okay? It probably would be fine, but I don't like the idea of it just being able to rock back and forth. I don't want it to make the connections loose or break something or anything, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on that right now. Okay, installation is complete. Sorry I didn't get footage of it, but I just basically did what I said. I mounted the resistor in between the frame bolt, so it's locked in there. And as you can see, it's working just fine. I got the other side done as well. This one's, I don't have the turn signal on here, but it does work. Take my word for it. But anyway, so we have completed. As you can see, it's really bright. It's so much brighter. So I have completed the installation of LED turn signals. You can get them in amber, you can get them in white, basically any color that you want, as long as it's legal. So these are in fact in my state legal, and yeah, pretty cool. It really is great just how bright these are. I'm just absolutely amazed. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Just make sure you know what you're doing. You're working with electricity and wires and things like that, so I won't be responsible if you screw something up. So that's pretty much it. I'll catch you guys later.